So how many Gospels are there? Or how many Gospels should there be? There are 4 in our Bible, and the question we could ask is that not enough, or is that too many? The idea that it's not enough, I was on vacation a few years ago, and somebody had handed me the novel The Da Vinci Code, and I read it, and I laughed out loud. I thought, well, this is great fiction. I'm really enjoying it. Fast read, page turner. I got back from vacation. I realized people were taking this book very seriously. This character, Lee T-Bing, says that there are all these other Gospels that were suppressed and hidden by the church. And this is absolutely stunning to me. People began to ask, where are these Gospels? Why haven't you told us about these? Why did they get left out? They're not new. They're old. When I was in school studying back in the 1970s, we had this book, New Testament Apocrypha. It contains dozens and dozens of Gospels. This book actually was originally published in 1904, collecting Gospels. We've known about these Gospels for a long, long time. Why were they left out? Why are they not in our Bible? Were there fears that some truth about Jesus would be damaging to the church, or that women would have more power and so on? All I can say to you is that I've read all of these, and I'd invite you to. You can buy them in Walmart now, editions of the old Gospels that didn't make it into the Bible. And several things about them that I would mention. I mean, one is if you read them, they're just bizarre. Jesus is not more human in these Gospels. He's almost totally divine. Jesus, as a child, he's playing in his crib, and he takes some clay and he forms little birds and causes them to fly away. And he's on the playground one day, and some boys make fun of him, and he just strikes them dead because he's got the power of the Son of God. Just strikes his playmates dead because they made fun of him. Or Joseph is working the carpentry shop, and bored, he cut it too short, and Jesus magically lengthens it. You have this sort of thing. You have a lot of it's really against women. The Gospel of Thomas is one that gets talked about a lot. Ends by saying, if women become men, then they can enter into the kingdom. Strange, almost an anger against women in these stories. What should we say? The Gospel of Peter is one. And we could say, why haven't you told us about this? The Gospel of Peter tells about the resurrection of Jesus, and the stone was rolled away, and Jesus came out, and his cross came out. Well, the Gospels we have never said that the cross was buried with him. And this cross not only comes out of the tomb, it begins to speak. A talking cross. So why haven't we told you about this? Well, we don't believe it's genuine. We don't believe that there's historically reliable information in these Gospels. They're all much, much later. These other Gospels that we found or have known about for a long time, they're written at least 100 years and sometimes 200 years after the Gospels that we have in our New Testament. And scholars just don't think that they contain reliable information. The idea of having 4 Gospels is interesting. Very, very early on in the history of the church. And this is just a fact. This isn't James the minister trying to talk you into anything. Very, very early in the history of the church, there just was a consensus that these 4 Gospels were the standards. They were accepted. They were used in worship. Everyone understood that there were 4. No one thought there were 7. No one thought there were 2. 4 early on. There was that consensus. A lot of scholars now are publishing books and making a lot of money saying there are conflicts between the Gospels. We've always known this. They knew this back in the first century. They didn't all agree with each other in every detail. And one of the things that I think is just funny out of the 2nd century is there was a guy named Tatian who decided to publish what was called the Diatessaron. It was a harmony of the Gospels. He thought having 4 Gospels was kind of embarrassing because they didn't jive exactly. He said, let's just have one condensed story, and then nobody will make fun of us anymore for having 4 stories that conflict at times. And the bishops of the church said, no, we're not going to just have one. We're going to retain these 4 Gospels that all along have been used and that we believe carry the truth, that really tell us the heart of what Jesus was about. So they were willing to live with the messiness of that and a little bit of embarrassment from these stories that don't exactly jive. We might expect this. If you think about great people in history who stir up controversy or attract some kind of a following, there are always different viewpoints of them. We expect this. Complex, brilliant leaders tend to make that sort of thing happen, don't they? And then also, as the story of Jesus was told to different people in different locations and with different needs, we would expect different nuances of the story to emerge, different emphases. It's one thing to tell the story of Jesus to people that are sort of lazy and lackadaisical and aren't doing anything for anybody. There you emphasize the parts of Jesus that say, go and serve. But then you come to people that their lives are endangered because they've said they're following Jesus. And for them, it's not go do something, it's they're comforted, they're encouraged during these difficult times. So we expect stories with different nuances, and it's not always going to jive just perfectly. So how do we read? How do we read these Gospels? We compare them. They're additions of the four Gospels beside each other. We look and we compare, and it's just intriguing to see when they agree and when they go off in different directions. I think if you would read these other Gospels that didn't make it into the Bible, that no one early on accepted as having much to do with the historical Jesus, and compare them with the four that are in our Bible, I think you'll find from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John just words that are, it's so human, it's so hopeful, there's a beauty there, there's a wonder there in those four Gospels. So I think four always has been the right number.